everyone. Ryan Aho here with the Burt Lehman, bringing you episode 163 of the One to Go Show. And Burt, I don't know if you saw, so it's Tuesday night. We're filming this, right? And I just talked to my buddy Joel, and he's like, lights are out at East Bay, right? Lights are out at East Bay. And he said, a little bit of nostalgia. Some of you old school racers may have seen this in the past, but sounds like they're talking about taking pickup trucks and lining them around the infield and shining light out onto the track. That would be interesting. So I'm itching to kind of get done with the show to see what transpired there.
I can't believe that an insurance company would allow that to happen. But yeah, one of my friends sent me a text, something about the lights out, and I replied back to him with a question mark. And then he said, the lights are out at East Bay. And, oh, I'm having bad memories of SK Speedway.
Yeah, it's happened a time or two. I've seen, I mean, it happens, but
yeah,
hopefully the power company isn't deciding we want to just close it down 2 years early. There's still some racing to be had over at the clay at the bay there. But Dirt Track Supply, I want to give them a shout out, before we get started here. Ron, Trevor, and the gang over in Watertown, South Dakota, for all things racing. If you need a new car, they got the aero chassis. You need tin work done, they do beautiful fabricating tin work, bodies, bumpers, you name it, they do it. If you need parts, tires, safety equipment, that is your go-to for all things racing. Dirt Track Supply over in Watertown, South Dakota. Big shout out to those guys. But Burt, getting to be a little bit too much of a routine here, but before we get into the fun stuff, a little bit of sad news. You texted me right away after the show last week, maybe a day after. A little sad news in eastern Wisconsin.
Yeah, I can't remember what day it was last week, but yeah, Gary Springborn passed away. He's Troy Springborn's dad, and Gary Springborn did race back in the 60s. I don't know if he raced in the 70s at all, but I know in the 60s. And he is in the Shawano Speedway Hall of Fame. So our condolences go out to the family.
Yeah, absolutely. And Don Brightbill as well. So for those of you on the western side of Wisconsin, the Cedar Lake, Menominee contingent, Don Brightbill, of course, the legendary hauler they had. I don't know if you ever saw that, Burt. I'll see if I can get a picture to post on here. They had a double-decker open trailer that he hauled his car and his son, which was the wild child, Craig Brightbill, the 48 junior. And they had mods, and they also ran the wing mods. But I remember that as a kid. I'm like, that hauler is incredibly cool. But sounds like he was one of the nicest guys at the racetrack. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to meet him. If somebody has some great stories about either of these guys, post them in the comments. We'd love to hear them. But thoughts and prayers to all involved there. But on today's, go ahead, Burt.
I think Brightbill also raced the late model at one time.
I think he did. I saw a picture of I don't know if it was maybe a Sportsman or something. I got a picture. I'll post it. Somebody can maybe comment on what exactly that car was. But longtime racers over in western Wisconsin, regardless. On today's show, a little recap. We're going to look back to Mod Week last week at East Bay. Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Speed Weeks continue. We're going to recap the events that happened prior to us doing this show, and a lot happening this week. Burt, down in Florida, more proof that racers hate money. I mean, it is unbelievable. We'll take a deep dive into that. Also, one of the legendary specials up in Wissota land announced the addition of another class. I love the class. I do. Maybe like the idea as a racer, but we're going to take a deep dive into our specials with too many classes, killing the culture that occurs at the post-racing or postseason invitationals in Wissota land. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, our picks, our not so bold predictions. We'll get into that. And the first, though, Burt, let's jump into a blast of the past. Before we get into that, little shout out, Impact Health Sharing. If you're paying too much for health insurance, if you're self-employed, if you're an employee and you have to pay for your own, if you're a business owner and you have to, provide health insurance coverage for employees and you're just getting killed and you're looking for maybe some relief in your pocketbook, give me a text. Give me a call, 218-969-1380. I have a great alternative impact health sharing that's literally been cutting bills by the thousands for, especially for business owners with employees. It's been a great deal, and see if I can get you a quote, see if I can maybe help you out. But 163, Bert, and number 63, you got either one?
I have a 63.
You have a 63.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got?
From Eastern Wisconsin, Roger Van Roy. He raced, late models at Shawano Speedway in the 1970s and 1980s, and then he also in the 80s he also raced in the mini stock division, which was a 4-cylinder division, but they fabricated the bodies like a wedge late model. And then I believe in the 90s he also dabbled racing an IMCA modified.
Okay. Does his family any legacy there? Any kids, nephews, anything like that race that you know
of? The Van Roy name is a very racing oriented family. I'm not sure how they're all related though, so I don't want to say, oh yeah, he's related to this person if I'm not positive.
All right, we got a little research project for Bert. You're gonna have to get back to us next week on that, see if there's a legacy there that he passed along. I have a few as well. I'll start with I got a buddy of mine, Lauren, that's a great contributor to the show. He sends me over some pictures every week, and he's like, hey, don't forget this guy, John Ozzie. And John Ozzie raced for a number of years, number 63, and that was before my time, Bert. I don't remember racing against, I didn't race against him, but I did race against his kid, J.P. Ozzie, and I ran against him in the supers. We talked about him briefly last week, and J.P. still heavily involved. He's helped quite a bit over at the Helverline Speedway up in Duluth, Proctor Speedway, if you will. But John Ozzie, that Ozzie name is a name that's been around the Twin Ports, Proctor, Superior for a very long time. So a shout out to John Ozzie. Another one here, little trivia question for you. Do you remember, he's actually a Minnesota guy from the cities, raced Cedar Lake, Menominee. Back in the 80s, he had a red and black Corvette looking number 4 late model.
No.
He was a big burly guy. He built his own L&T or LT sheet metal brakes. Terry Lanfear. So Terry you don't remember that name?
No, I don't.
Killing me. That was in the days when MJ would come over. So yeah, he had a Corvette looking car, pretty sweet late model. Raced, made many trips up north. I remember him, and I think most people remember him as a number 4, but he ran a number 63. I don't know if it was for a full season, just invitationals, but I have a picture here to share. If somebody has a little info on why Terry Lanfear was in a 63, that'd be kind of cool to hear. Another one. Here's one. Legendary driver, right? Won a ton of races in the 80s in the late models and in the modifieds with the famed number 54 from White Bear Lake, Minnesota at the time. I'm not sure where he lives now.
Although only 54 I'm familiar with is Brueggelmann.
There you go, Jim Brueggemann. You got it. So Jim Brueggemann ran a number 63. Not sure whose car it was. I believe some other people maybe had a stint in that car as well. But I have some pictures here, and I tell you, Jim Brueggemann could flat out wheel a race car. He was a hell of a race car driver. One up at the Hiven Raceway. I remember him very competitive at Cedar. Got a pretty cool picture here. If you're listening to the podcast or listening, check it out, right? He's kind of got some trophy girl pics, and he was kind of, Puka mentioned last year that Jeff Hinkemeyer was Cole Trickle before Cole Trickle was, right? The Tom Cruise. Jim Brueggemann was kind of that blonde Tom Cruise too, right? He was kind of that guy. So, but a hell of a race car driver. Another one I got from a friend of ours, Dennis Mosier. We talked about him a couple months back. South Dakota driver, tragically passed away unexpectedly within the last year. but he ran over at Aberdeen, Watertown, Huron, and one of those guys, I didn't get a chance to meet him, but everybody that talks about him says, man, this guy, he helped a lot of drivers. He was a great racer. He was just super fun guy to be around. And another guy lost too soon. And I got a couple just quick ones here. 3 old super stockers, right? Mitch Gray from Superior, Wisconsin. Bruce Fawkes kind of raced at St. Croix Falls, Cedar Lake. He ran a modified as well. And a guy that I remember being a very formidable opponent, Danny Olinger. I think he ran a Resch Rocket just like Brent Larson had back in the day, but he had a pretty sweet looking number 63, and he was very tough to compete against over at the Cedar Lake Speedway. So it's always fun to take a little look back. Fans, don't be afraid to get a hold of Bert, get a hold of me, whether it's in personally or on the One to Go Show page. If you have any 63s or any stories or any numbers coming up, if you have a favorite driver, get that info over to us. We like to give them a little shout out. But what do you say we shift our gears, Bert?
Well, I have one more thing before, because as you mentioned, it's Tuesday night. We're recording this, so it's February 7th, and this is anniversary of a big melee that took place down in Florida.
Boy,
Wisconsin ties.
Was this a Terry Casey deal?
Yes.
What time was this? What tell me? So we got a little Terry Casey news. Speaking of that, but what happened?
Well, they were racing down in Florida. It must have been, I think it was East Bay, but I'm not sure if it was East Bay or Volusia. But anyway, Josh Richards passed him, and I mean, I watched. Actually, the only reason I know this is because Flow Racing had it on their Facebook page a couple of days ago. And Josh Richards abused him when he passed him on the inside. He basically just shoved him out of the way. So Casey spun out. He sat there until Richards came around the track, and then he gunned it. And he didn't get a clean shot on him, but he took him down into the infield.
He shot one across the bow. So I call him the old rolling pinball, right? He pinball wizard. Nobody better at qualifying than him, but he was not the guy that you're probably going to race side by side with very often. But James Essex made a little announcement tonight. Maybe you know something. Are we going to see the 42 back in action this year?
I don't know. I've been hearing those rumors for the last several months, but I don't know anything concrete.
That was announced tonight that Terry Casey is going to be back behind the wheel this year. So that is your project for this week, to see what research you can dig up. That's your neck of the woods. See what you can find out, what kind of car, where he's going to race, what the plans are. But pinball wizard Terry Casey, Mr. Excitement himself, looks like he might be back in action. So what do we got next year, Bert?
We're going to recap all the happenings down in Florida.
Yeah, should we start with some late model action? Lucas Oil Dirt late model action. Before we get to that, I want a quick shout out Brad Parson, late model racer himself, right? He's from over in Western Minnesota. He has all kinds of solutions, the right chemicals, if you will, for your farming needs, for your agricultural needs. This is a time of year you best get a hold of him, right? Get a hold of Brad, and he'll get you what you need to get better yields, better profitability, and the proof's in the pudding. He's had great results. They've had all the testing numbers. If you want to see some data, why not give it a try? Everybody's kind of afraid to try that new thing, right? Well, what do you have to lose? Absolutely everything. Because if his products can yield you the results you're looking for and you don't do it, you're going to wish you did. So don't be that guy, right? Don't sit back and go, man, I wish I did. Be that guy that says, I'm glad I did, and 2023 will be great. So Brad Parsons has all the solutions for egg that you need. So let's start with Alltech. One night rained out, right? And so Alltech got one night in. What stuck out to you, Bert, over at the half mile down in Florida?
Jonathan Davenport was nowhere to be seen.
Oh my! Oh, he was everywhere to be seen. I gotta ask you. So was that a marketing ploy, right? I mean, because he's used to getting all the camera footage because he's in front, victory lane, all that. He wasn't going to win. Did he cause all the? Was he in all them yellows just to get extra airtime for sponsors? Not really. He was like 4 of them. He didn't even finish time trials. My goodness, couldn't have been a worse night for Superman.
Yeah, I would agree as well, and especially since I picked him I picked him in the pick'ems, and then he was also in my. I said he was going to win both races down there, so that didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a fail. So he ended up taking an emergency provisional. Are you familiar with how emergency provisionals work?
No, they only have a limited number that they can use, though.
They have a limited number of regular provisionals, and then they also have emergency provisionals. Okay. If you take an emergency provisional, you have to pass X amount of cars to really make any more money. So he DNF'd the feature. He had a rough night, right? Rough night. He ended up scored 21st. How much money do you think they paid him for 21st?
I don't know. Nothing.
$100.
Okay.
$100. Bert, this is a donkey award to JD. Mike, I'm sorry, man. I know it's your boyfriend, but it is what it is. Okay. So here's the deal. Lucas Oil only takes your 5 best shows for points out of Speed Weeks. All the Lucas Oil events that are at Speed Weeks, they only count your 5 best shows. There is literally zero reason to take an emergency provisional. Overton had one. He says, "No, I'm good. I'm good. I'll go ahead and stay in the trailer," because he didn't make the feature either. He almost did, but he didn't. But he took the emergency provisional, DNF, wrecked more stuff. He wrecked both cars, not only his primary, but he took out the backup, wrecked that too. And he was actually on the ride, showed on the ride home. He goes, "Lance, I'm sorry, man, but this $100, I'm going to put it down on a bar tab, and I guess we'll have to try again tomorrow," he said, or whatever. Like, he was in good spirits about it. I mean, we all have to.
And then they didn't try again tomorrow.
No, they did not. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But RTJ, he parked in victory lane. He's been really good down there in Speed Weeks. And really, the great race, would you say it was kind of from second back? RTJ was pretty comfortable. Beginning of the race, Clanton and Blair kind of led, but they faded. But once RTJ got the lead, he was gone. But really good race. What was your thoughts of the action down there?
Yeah, it was a really good race. There's decent amount of passing. Like you said, Max Blair had a really good run going, but he faded at the end, or something happened to him, right, where he didn't get a top finish. But overall, the racing was very good there.
Fun fact for you: RTJ only driver in the top 5 to start up there, right? T-Mac plus 10. He started it looks like 12th to 2nd. Shepard actually had a decent night. He started 10th, got 3rd, or 8th, got 3rd, excuse me. Moran, he started 14th and got 4th. And Tyler Erb plus 16, 21st to 16th. So I got a question for you. It's a little banter on Facebook, right? Could this be the best racing half mile in the country? Be careful, Bert. I know where you live.
I haven't seen. I don't know if I've seen enough races there to say that it's the best half mile in the country. I mean, it would be up there.
They've had some good races. I mean,
it's got pretty stiff competition with Eldora and stuff.
So the last few, right? Whether it was the XR Super Series event or the Lucas Oil events from the last couple of years, we've seen some really good racing out at Alltech. And I'm not normally a half mile guy, but I've been pretty impressed. I think they're doing a pretty darn good. Is that Wendell Wallace that runs that track? Is that who?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. They were talking about, I can't remember who it was. Wendell, I think, but maybe it's not even Wendell Wallace, but I think it is, but I'm not positive. But the track's been pretty good. So let's jump over to East Bay night 1. We're going to touch more on the whole week of East Bay. Kind of an interesting night last night. What stuck out to you from the first night down at East Bay?
Bishop continues to struggle in that Longhorn. I mean, he didn't even qualify for the feature. I mean, in his B main, he didn't go anywhere. I mean, he pretty much ran where he ran. And another one that's on the struggle bus, Bronson, started on the front row in his backyard, and I don't know, at one point he was back to 10th. I don't know where he finished in the final rundown, but that was, I mean, as the announcer said, if he can't get a win here in his own backyard, you know,
right? So Tyler Erb wins, right?
Right.
So he needed that because he'd been struggling to that point. He had a good run. He came like plus 16 at Alltech. So he had a couple of good runs in a row here. What do you think of that move? Kind of threw a haymaker at old Air Force Ashton Winger there, Bert. Thoughts on that deal?
Yeah, he really pushed him up to the wall. I mean, Winger would have got by him without that move. And then who knows? I mean, because Winger was flying, he found something on the high side. But yeah, I mean, Herb just drifted up and kept drifting. And I mean, Winger did a good job to keep it off the wall, actually.
Well, remember last year coming off turn 2, I don't remember where they were, but he was rolling the outside. Somebody slid him and he didn't lift, and then he ended up cartwheeling down the back straightaway off the track. Little bit of maturity there, right? He lifted off Air Force Ashton Winger lifted off the gas and kept himself out of the wall, but I think he lost his composure because the next corner he pushed. He went from like battling for the lead to like 12th and like that fast. And but he saved the car anyway. So he's maturing enough to lift out of the gas. Excellent run, Tyler Millwood. 20th to 3rd. Took rubber on the bottom. It was one of those. This is a nice thing to a small racetrack, because when it takes rubber on the bottom, started patching up, they had to really whoa up to hit it, right? So they're like parking it on the bottom, and he's like, I got nothing to lose. I'm just gonna hustle the high side, and he drove by a pile of cars. There's a caution with 6 to go, and he drove by a bunch of them on the outside.
Well, and they talked to him after the race, and they asked him, what was the secret to his success? And he said, I just got sick of following people at the bottom, so I went to the high side, and it worked.
It did. Hey, that was cool to see. That's his best finish in open late model racing. So hopefully he can continue.
He had to go through a B to make it into the A. So, that was a hell of a run. And who knows if there would have been more laps. I mean, he maybe would have caught the top 2.
I think he would have got second for sure. He was coming for second, but that was fun to watch. And I got to ask you, do we put an asterisk by the win for old Tyler Erb there? Does that one get an asterisk?
Why? Because not all the drivers unloaded.
All the good cars stayed in the trailer, right? All the good. So if you haven't watched East Bay, kind of here's what's going on. The first 3 nights are non-sanctioned. 5,000 to win is all it is, right? I think it's 500 to start. I'm pretty sure it's 500 to start, but 5,000 to win. No Lucas points, right? Plus, Lucas is only taking your best 5 shows, which I think that's kind of dumb. They're throwing away so many shows down there. It kind of gives. I mean, I get it. You people don't want to have their whole season determined in the first couple of weeks of racing. I get it, but that's a lot of throwaways. Maybe I don't know. That's just my opinion, but I had people ask, and they're like, so T-Mac, JD, RTJ, right? Overton actually ran a Warrior, got 4th, Bert. He actually, people are like, oh, Bishop's just trying to get used to this car. Overton jumped in somebody's Warrior and got 4th, almost on the podium. So I don't know about all that. But Owens, Clanton, some of these drivers that have been kind of the top guys, they're like 5,000 to win. No points. Yeah, we'll just watch tonight. I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of a fail, I guess, maybe on East Bay's part to not sanction them races. And why? I mean, on the flip side, Tyler Millwood had a great event, right? It was probably his best event ever. So there was still good cars out there. Tyler Erb needed a win. So on one hand, I look at it, right, and I'm like, well, it's like, why even waste their time? But on the flip side, give somebody else maybe a chance to park at Victory Lane that maybe wouldn't have, I guess. So maybe there's that.
Yeah, I mean, and I was a little surprised that Jimmy Owens didn't race, just from the fact that, they didn't get those cars put together until like right before the season. So you would think he'd want some laps on those cars and, try to figure some things out. Now I saw that he was racing tonight, but he was racing somebody else's car, and that's a Rocket. So, that doesn't help him with his Longhorn.
No, it really doesn't. And I do got to give reluctantly, Bert, I got to give a little bit of a shout out. So in our pick'ems, right, Jeff actually picked Tyler Erb to win at East Bay. I'm like, have you lost your mind? Have you watched him this year? Like, he's been awful, right? He ain't going to beat RTJ, Davenport, and all that. Well, they didn't even race. He goes, I just knew. Oh, okay, sure you did. But Jeff got one on us. All right, so he had Turbo winning. What else happened down there in Florida here this past week, Bert?
Late model wise, or are we going to
we'll go to real. We'll go real race cars now. We'll talk about real race cars.
Well, there are modifieds down there, and we had at least one Wisconsin driver racing down there.
Yeah, Buzzy was our hope. So it was Mod Week down at East Bay, and keep in mind, there's only one more year after this year, right? And if you think Northern drivers that have gone down performed at a high level at East Bay, it's the human highlight reel. It's Kevin Buzzy Adams. I mean, he's a hell of a race car driver, and he started out good, Bert, right? He started out good. Now he went down there. He ended up getting a pair of seconds in the first two nights. And the second night, Bert, 17th to second, he actually got the lead and stayed up top too long, fell back, got second. And from there, it just spiraled downward in a hurry. He got ninth, and he had two nights where he DNF'd where that car looked terrible. I don't know if they bent something, broke something. I know they hurt a motor at over at North Florida there, so they had a smaller motor than they would hope. But quite honestly, if somebody else was in that car, not named Buzzy, they wouldn't even have been competitive. They were way out to lunch. And Buzzy kind of willed it up as good as he could, but I don't know. It is what it is, but not a good advertising week necessarily for MB. I'm assuming maybe there was something wrong with the cars. I really don't know, but it was kind of a bummer because we both picked him to win. I picked him to win the finale, and probably the kind of the worst experience he's had down there in a while. But we'll have a little bit more of a recap here. But before we do, quick shout out, Bert, buyraceshirts.com. Racers, track promoters, series promoters, businesses, you name it. If you need apparel, you need hats, you need hoodies, you need t-shirts, banners, you need whatever, buyraceshirts.com. Outlaw Graphics over in Montevideo, Minnesota. Jordan Tollickson, the Tollickson family, another, I guess, legacy family in dirt racing. They can take care of all your needs. So check them out, buyraceshirts.com. Little recap there, Bert. Night number one, the kid, Drake Troutman, parked it in Victory Lane. Now, last year he was in an MB. This year, a Longhorn. That couldn't have tasted very good for MB Nation down there, right? I mean, Buzzy got second, but I don't think the boys down there were too happy to see him jump out of an MB into a Longhorn and into Victory Lane. They probably weren't real happy about that. Night number two, Buzzy, like I said, got the lead from 17th. Travis Varnador drove by him on the bottom, got it done. Night number three, Tyler Nicely got it done from 9th. Night number four, Bert, a little bit of drama. So caution comes out with a couple laps to go, and Lucas Lee is your race leader. Delaware double file, right? And on the outside of that row two was Drake Troutman. Okay. Now on the restart, he kind of did, I guess I would describe it as kind of like a Bobby Pierce start. I see him do this once in a while when he's on the outside, where they're rolling through the middle of the corner, and then they kind of like drive straight up to the outside of the middle of 3 and 4, to hit the tack strip on the very, very outside. It's like the most awkward looking thing in the world to try to get a huge run. And I've seen where they've lost 3-4 cars doing it. This time it actually worked. But he was kind of next to him in the middle of 3 and 4. But when he drove out, he wasn't next to him at the line, and he got a huge run, took the lead, wins the race. They get done with the race and they stop him on the front straightaway, and they announce he's been docked 2 positions to 3rd. Your race winner for night number 4, Lucas Lee in the 12. Bert, I know you saw that. Did he jump? What's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, he was definitely alongside him in the corner. I don't think he was ever ahead of him. But yeah, like when a driver does that move, you know, they normally fall back a little bit because they're taking they're driving a longer distance. Right. And I mean, he was, I don't know where they consider on the track when it's docking or not, but I mean, he was several car lengths behind him when they crossed the start finish line. So I mean he wasn't ahead of them or even alongside of them at the start finish line.
And there's 2 parts to this whole deal, right? Because you see people start like this, and he did that same restart the one before that. They had a restart just previous to that, and he actually lost ground on that one. It didn't work very good for him, and they never penalized him. They didn't do nothing. It is what it is. Well, then after the race, he did the same thing on the next one. He takes the lead, he gets the win, and then they dock him, right? So if they're going to dock him, you think they would have docked him the first time he did it. But then you hear other people saying, like, he was warned. They warned us about not doing that. I don't know if that's true or not. I wasn't there. I didn't hear it. So that's just both sides of the story. But then they get down into, so they interview the top 3, right? They get down into the center of the track down there, and out comes Lucas Lee out of his car, and the place is booing. They're pissed. They're like, this is BS. And he's like, you could tell he was taken back. And I don't know him at all, right? And he's like, boo y'all, like, what are you talking about? He's like whatever, like, he was super like mad and upset, like people are booing him. He's like, why are you booing me?
And I don't know if you saw it, but he got out of the car, and then how the driver has to walk around the front of the car to get to the side of the car so they can do the interview. And when he gets to the front tire after getting out of the car, I don't know who he was doing this to, but he did the DX crotch chop to somebody. And I mean, you know what that is, right?
I did.
I don't know if he was, because I had heard that he was saying stuff to Troutman's pit crew. So I don't know if he did that to Troutman or if he was doing that to the fans or what. But I mean, he should have just been gracious that he got the win and just left it at that.
Yeah, and there's 2 sides to this, right? Because more than I can only, this is pure speculation. Okay, this is speculation. Troutman's crew's in the infield. They're pissed. They feel like they've been robbed out of a win, right? Lucas Lee gets out of his car, and the first thing, I guarantee my pit crew would have been like kiss offs. I mean, there would have been expletives flying, like, this is BS, this is bullshit, like, screw you, like, there would have been F-bombs flying, like, and whether they're mad at the driver or not, they would have been hurled at him like, you didn't win this race, what are you talking about? So more than likely there was some banter there on both sides of it, right? Well, then Drake Troutman gets out of his car and he shakes hands with one of their crew, and it appeared on the video, and we can't hear what's being said. We have no idea, right? But it appeared on the video like he went up to say, hey, congrats, you got it. It is what it is. And literally Lucas Lee lost his mind. He's like flipping out and pointing. He's telling the cop, get him out of here. Like, he's like hollering at him. Now, once people are, and people blew up all over Facebook about this, right? They're like, what a loser. I can't believe he's doing that, right? Well, I don't know what he said, right? Maybe he didn't say nothing. Maybe Drake Troutman went up and said, hey, it is what it is. Congrats, you got the win. And he was mad about like the interaction he had with the pit guys, and he took it out there. Or if it would have been me, Bert, if it would have been me, right? I would have been like, oh, great. Hey, great win. What are you sucking off the flag, man? Or like, what are you doing here, right? Like, I would have probably said something smart ass that warranted that reaction. I mean, if you know me, you know me. I would have said something because I wouldn't have been happy about it. I would have felt like I got robbed. So we don't really know what happened there, but let's just say that took off, right? I mean, the Chaz had comments on it, and then Kyle Hammer on his Facebook page shared a link, and then they're all bickering back and forth, and he won one of the qualifying features at Volusia. He's like, I turned my phone off. I'm down here to race and have fun with the family. I turned my phone off. I'm sick of the drama. So I talked to my buddy Johnny Brokey. He said, I parked next to the guy. I think he's a pretty good dude. So I don't know. It created a little bit of a buzz down there in East Bay anyway. So, and then of course he won the finale. We should probably touch on that. $5,000 to win. He parked in victory lane. Rodney Wang, a guy that I raced against when I was down there, he got second. Alan Weiser from Illinois, third. Kyle Hammer from Illinois, fourth. And then Drake Troutman, fifth. So overall, good racing down there at East Bay. Always is. Late models are down there now. But, Bert, what do you say we get into the pick'ems a little bit here? Or anything else on East Bay from you, I should say.
No, I was just hesitating about the pick'ems because I'm not doing that well this year.
I think you're doing great, man. I think it's early. Like literally,
it is early.
Races this week. It is. So Bad Brad and myself are tied at 16 for now. Right? For now. Mike, Kurt, and Kent are at 15. So it's tied up front. Jeff is at 13. Dan is at 8. Bert's back there giving us a head start. Appreciate it. You're at 6. And not so hot Carl at 5. Gonna have to rethink how he's doing things, get back in the mix. But I mean, literally, we're picking 10 races this week. There'll be many races over the weeks over the course of the year where we do the same. You could pick up 10 points in one swing. So I mean, it's really early. This week, Bert, we're gonna pick 5 nights of Lucas Oil. We already picked the first one, but the last 5 nights at East Bay, Lucas Oil Dirt Late Models. I guess 3 of them are, 2 of them are non-sanctioned. 2 nights of All-Star Sprints, 3 nights of World of Outlaw Sprints, and the Gator Championship for the Dirt Car UMP Modifieds at Volusia. Out of them races, what are you looking forward to out of them races this week, Bert?
Oh, all the late model races at East Bay. So it's always fun.
You spelled modified races at Volusia wrong.
Well, I'm looking forward to the modifieds too, because there are 2 drivers from Eastern Wisconsin racing down there in those races. So it'll be fun to see how they do down there.
Both had solid night number 1s. They look good night number 1. Speaking of the mod drivers down at Volusia, Bert, you might want to buckle up. Okay, I got a little rant. Can I have a rant? I haven't had a rant in a while. Okay? Have these? This is what I'm talking about earlier in the show. I said this is more proof that racers hate money. I mean, these mod guys that show up to Volusia have flat out lost their minds. Okay, lost their minds. Bert, last night, so the format, it is what it is, okay? The format for the first 3 nights is they pill draw for qualifying, they do time trials, they split them up into 6, and they run 6. They're calling them features. I call them 6 qualifiers. I call them 6 paid heat races, whatever, but they're calling them features, okay? Bert, did you see what they're paying to win those features?
I did not see what they're paying. You told me, but I didn't see it before you told me.
Just, I mean, what would, if you're thinking, if you had no idea, and you're thinking, okay, this is Speed Weeks, this is Volusia, World Racing Group owns the track, it's the Gator Championship week, right? There's 100 mods down there.
You would think at least 1,000 to win.
600 to win. $600 to win. It's $700 tonight, Tuesday, 1,000 on Wednesday, goes back to 6 or 7 on Thursday, and then they got the 5,000 to win on Saturday. Okay, Bert. Tires. Okay, tires. Now the Wissota drivers, they thought they got kind of a sore deal here a little while back. It's nothing compared to this. What do you think it costs if you went to the parts truck down at Volusia and you wanted to buy a UMP mod tire, right? What do you think you'd have to shell out to get that tire?
Well, I had said $210.
$195. Okay. Now I promise you, if you're down there to race and you're competing at a high level, right? At minimum, you're putting on 2, probably 3, some 4, but for sure 2. But I would assume that, especially night one, you're going to put a pair of brand new rears on, and you're going to put a right front on, especially if you're in the late feature, because they had practice for the sprints and it was dry and abrasive late in the night. That is 3 tires, Bert, is $585. Race gas is like 13, 14 for the late model plus that they're, a lot of them are running $40 to get in. Bert, if these mod drivers literally clicked their heels together and miraculously like appeared in Volusia and didn't even have to pay for fuel to get there, and they won, they still couldn't come out ahead. That is the dumbest shit I've ever heard of in my entire life. That is why on earth. So it's come down to this, Bert. What we're seeing in racing today is you either have a ton of money or your sponsor has a ton of money. You got big backing, or you've been racing for a very long time. You have a ton of stuff accumulated, right? To where you're able to just kind of keep going, or you're a kid of somebody that had a ton of stuff accumulated and you take over their stuff. There's very few people can afford to get into this sport. It's going the wrong direction. And racers are just as guilty as anyone. I was one, right? I went to many races. I drove to Wilmer every single week racing a super stock, knowing that if I won the feature, I'd break even or come out a little bit behind if I won, right? That was when things were a lot cheaper. And it's gotten worse, right? People are wondering, like, well, how come people ain't following points or championships? Because like it literally costs $500 to unload your race car. If you drive 100 miles, it costs you $500 to unload. If you put on a couple tires or one tire, pit passes, fuel to get there, all that, this is not a good deal. Couple things that I'd like for solutions, Bert, is there. Would you agree that if you're in them lower classes, right? Let's say sport mods in your area, IMCA sport mods, IMCA stock cars, right? Hobby pure stocks or whatever the hobby stocks are, that type of class, right? Even super stocks in Wissota, Midwest mods, whatever. Most of those drivers can't afford to shell out $195 for a tire, right? I mean, the national average income is like $65,000 in the United States of America. Well, that'll pay your house payment, your bills. Where's the extra money coming from, right? And people are going, I'm out. I ain't paying that. I can't afford that, right? I'm out. So on the tire deal, I still believe Hoosier's gouging. I do. I'm like, you can't convince me that they need to charge $195 to like make money at Hoosier. I'm sorry. And if that's the case, that they have to charge that, they best hire somebody to do like a whole business model, look at what they're doing there and try to come up with some alternatives, because they have to know, Bert, they have to know that Hoosier's not going to be around in 10 years if they keep charging people this kind of money, because nobody's going to be able to afford to race, right? So that has to change. So these lower classes, in my opinion, because I don't think Hoosier is going to fix the problem. I really don't. I believe that these lower classes need to look at alternatives. And a lot of people think immediately, okay, well, what are the alternatives? American Racer, they probably can't do it. Doesn't sound like they can supply. Why not streetcar tires? For years and years and years and years and years, Bert, race cars raced on streetcar tires. They did it forever. Forever. It was a thing. That's what they did. Street stocks forever ran on street tires, right? Street radials. Why not? Why not? And people are like, well, them tires go up in price too. Yeah, but they last longer, right? They got deeper tread. They last longer. I don't understand why somebody has not been bold enough, right? Maybe Jerry Weigel, because he's not tied to WISSOTA, right? Maybe at Eagle Valley Speedway, maybe he could say, look, here's the deal. At our track, this class right here, we're going to run street radios, and or you can run WISSOTA Hoosiers or whatever. You can't get them if you run Eagle Valley, because that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But why not test it and see if they can find something that's going to work? Because this is not going to survive. Promoters, I'm telling you what, I urge you and I am begging you to look for an alternative here and talk to your local tire dealers, talk to some tire people. There's people way smarter than me when it comes to tires, right? Talk to my buddy Jim, he can maybe help somebody out or whatever. There has to be an alternative here, because right now WISSOTA's locked in. They had a bump, and that's a whole nother deal, but they had a little bit of a bump. It's going to be like 140, I think, for a mod tire. If in 2 years, Bert, that when the contract's done, if they jump up to market value and it's 180, 185, 195, 200, you might as well just the writing's on the wall. Just start closing tracks, right? I mean, it's over at that point. So they need to start looking at the problem. The other thing, Bert, is just the overall landscape. I was at the WISSOTA meetings, and there's a couple people there, a new board member, right? A couple track promoters that said, look, we got a problem here. We got a problem. We need to start looking at a 5-year plan, because people cannot afford to race. This is a problem. Nobody can afford this anymore. This is terrible. And some of the old dogs that are in the room, they're like, oh no, you're trying to reinvent the wheel and change this and change that. And they're fighting against it. It's like they're more worried about their pocketbook, or, well, it wasn't my idea. Bert, this has to change. It's getting worse, not better. The purses are about the same, because tracks can only pay so much for multiple reasons. We can blame the promoters, but would you agree, Bert, that promoting's been tougher because people they got their phone, right? They're entertained by their phone. They don't have to go to the races. It's harder to get people to the racetracks. They can only pay so much money. You can only go to the well so many times to get sponsor money before those businesses are like, how much money you want us just to buy the track? Or like, what are you doing, right? That's got to change. So in order for things to change, you have to think outside the box, right? Think back. You're older than me, but you ain't quite this old. But back in the day, Bert, a couple 100 years back, they if people wanted to go somewhere, right, they had to walk. That's what they did. They walked, right? And then all of a sudden they decided, you know what? Them big animals over there, them kind of look like you could maybe ride on one of them things. So they start riding a horse, right? And the first person, can you imagine the first person that said, I'm going to get on that thing and ride it? The person next to him must have been like, you're out of here. What are you, stupid? Like, you're going to get killed. What are you doing, right? Can't do that. And then all of a sudden they're like, we need to do something where we can haul the whole family. So they built these wagons, pulled them behind the horse. Somebody's like, oh, that was a good idea. Henry Ford, he says, hey, I'm going to put a motor in that thing. And somebody's like, yeah, okay. You're going to actually have it move by itself. Good one, right? Can you imagine that conversation? And then years down the road, somebody said, hey, if I want to go like across the country, I'm going to get in this tin can and fly through the air. Imagine being the person, right, that came up with the idea for an airplane, and you're talking to your buddy, right, going, dude, here's what we're going to do. They would have been like, dude, you're out of your mind. People are not going to get in a freaking tin can and go through the air. It's not happening, right? So things change. Now, racing has changed, because literally 50 years ago, right, they would pull cars to the track with a chain. They'd run street cars. I mean, it was literally stock off the showroom floor with a roll cage in it, cars, right? And now sometimes technology is good, but would you agree that all this technology hasn't made the entertainment value any better?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I mean, but you mentioned a lot of problems. One of the problems that you didn't mention is the drivers are willing to spend this amount of money to get
here you go, blaming the drivers
to get the latest technology. I mean, just as an example, I mean, IMCA introduced the IMCA Sport Mod division to be a beginner class. You know, so if people couldn't afford to race a modified, they could race a sport mod. Well, then drivers started putting together brand new rollers for the sport mod division, racing for $300 a week to win a feature. And you know, it's, you know, there's a lot of problems.
There is, but I got something for you there, right? So you're exactly right. Racing, Shane Hall mentioned this a while back. Racing costs the same thing as it did 100 years ago, right? You're going to spend everything you have. It just is what it is, right? But here's the deal. The rules makers have to put rules in place that take away the performance advantage of a checkbook. Okay. So one of the things that they did in the Midwest Modified division in Wissota Racing a few years back is they decided we're going to get rid of this whole 4-bar birdcage deal. That's gone. We're getting rid of that. We're going to go to 3 links, and they have to be within 2 inches of each other, and they have to be within 5 degrees of each other. That's it. That is your rear suspension with a solid full bar. That is your rear suspension. Simplified it, made it cheaper. And some of the drivers are like, I can't believe they're doing this. They're killing this. Best thing they ever did. Now there's other drivers going, man, we need to get bar angles back. We need to be able to do stuff. You can't let the clowns run the circus, right? The minute current drivers are involved with the rules making process, it's literally, well, I want this tidbit, I want that, I want this, I want that. You know, IMCA modifieds, for example, you can't run pump behind, right? You can't run like that type of stuff. You don't need it. With soda mods, certainly don't need it. You could run the pumps off the front just like IMCA, but IMCA kind of kept the cost down in that regards. So it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube, but somebody at some point in time is going to have to be bold enough, right? Brave enough, have enough testicular fortitude, right? To say, enough's enough. Enough's enough. I want this sport, Bert, to be here till the day I die, right? And hopefully that's 50 years from now. I want to be able to watch racing forever. And at the rate it's going now, there is more people finishing their careers racing than there is starting. We don't have a big influx of new drivers anywhere, right? Unless they're rich kids and everybody complains about, oh man, they got all kinds of money. Well, thank God they do, because if they did, we didn't have any race cars. So thank God that we have some people that have some money. But something has to change, and it's going to have to be big. It's going to have to be bold. I don't have all the answers, but somebody needs to get together and make this happen before it gets too late. But you're exactly right. Modifieds down at Volusia are exactly the reason it is what it is. Hey, we're going to pay you $600. All right, I'm in. What? Like, why would you literally even race and know that you can win the race and it won't even cover your expenses of being there? That is idiotic, right? That is stupid.
I think we had this exact same discussion last year at this time because it was the same thing. And the thing is,
except tires are more now. Right?
Well, okay. But, you know, why should a promoter pay more if the cars are going to show up anyway?
Bingo, right? You're 100% spot on, right? So what it's going to take is what's happening at East Bay with the late models. You got Davenport and some of them drivers saying, you know what, that's cool. We'll just hang tight here for a couple nights until the pay goes up and there's points. We don't need to unload for this. But the problem is I'm a racer at heart too. We're all a bunch of crack addicts when it comes to racing. And well, as long as we can get our fix, we'll spend every last dollar, lose our house, lose our retirements, get a divorce. It don't matter as long as we can go race. That's a dangerous game. I think something has to be fixed. I'm just saying. So Bert, what do you say we shift gears? What do we got next there?
We are going to the last lap, which is brought to you by Zuli's Race Engines.
It sure is, I tell you. And keep an eye. They got the Working Man Nationals this weekend out at the dirt track at Vegas. And I know there's some Zuli horsepower heading that direction. So keep an eye. Pay close attention to Victory Lane in Vegas. I have a feeling you're going to see a Zuli's race engine in Victory Lane. And if you don't see it there, I promise you're going to see a whole lot of it during the summer. If you can't beat them, join them, Zuli's race engines. So, Bert, another little bit of a hot topic here. So, this one's kind of bittersweet. I don't know. I'm not really sure how to feel about this, but an announcement was made today by FYE Motorsports, who they promote a lot of shows, Chris Steppen, that they have the Seitz Memorial, great event in memory of John Seitz over at the River City Speedway in Grand Forks, North Dakota. This year, Bert, they are adding WISSOTA Super Stocks to the card for all 3 nights. Your thoughts?
Well, how many classes do they normally have?
Well, they had late models,
right?
And they added modifieds in recent years, Midwest mods, street stocks, and they ran sprints 1 or maybe 2 of the nights. Rumor has it, I don't know this for sure. Rumor has it that they might be dropping the sprint cars for that event and having a different event for them. Not 100% sure. I haven't seen that announcement quite yet. But this is fine. I mean, even let's assume the sprint cars are gone. But that's 5 classes of cars at an invitational in postseason stuff. Is that too much?
I mean, you're approaching the too much. It's normally 3 nights, right? So I mean, they're not adding a night, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, me personally, for an invitational, I prefer a 2-night thing. Just because from a fan's perspective, if you're renting a hotel room, it's one less night that you have to get a hotel room, and it's just less expensive, because obviously as a fan you want to travel to as many races as you can, but if you're spending more money at one, that means that you can't go to another.
So I'm gonna go a different direction here. Okay. So I'm a firm believer of culture. Okay. With especially with live streaming today, a race fan can literally go, I don't need to go, I'll just watch it online. Right? We do it all the time. We watch racing every week. We watch it online every single week. I have literally looked at like some different late model events, a lot of stuff in the South, and I'm like looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 8, like the Ice Bowl right at Talladega. They got like 872 classes. I'm like, I ain't watching that. Or the National 100. I'm like, I will wait until that's done and I will jump back on there and I will watch the replay of the feature that I want to watch. But to hell with, like, I will even sit through that program watching it online, let alone the last thing I want to do is sit there for 8, 9, 10 hours in a day. I'm not interested. Puka is. That's his cup of tea. He likes a 10 race deal. For me, Bert, it's about culture. Why would a person want to go to an event versus just watching it online? Because you can get good coverage online, right? They're doing a great job with coverage. You can, and we've talked about this. I mean, you might not be able to see everything that you want to see online because you're only going to see what that camera view is, right? But overall, you're going to get a pretty good experience online. So why would a person want to go there? For me personally, and I'm going to ask you what it is for you, but for me personally, if I'm going to an event, it's about culture. It's about, I'm going to go hang out with some people. I'm going to go visit after the races. We can sit around the bonfire, right? We can hang out in the pits. Bert, you can't do that when the races get done at 2 a.m, right? You can't do that if they have too many classes and it's spread way out. Hopefully they get this show done quick, fast, and in a hurry. We'll find out. But I think that having too many classes at postseason invitationals is killing that invitational culture that I remember as a kid growing up. And I think that's disappeared because there's too many classes, the programs are drug out, and I think that's just terrible for the sport, in my opinion. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you from the standpoint of one of the good things about an invitational is, um, the culture and, hanging out with people that you, see once a year. And, if it's a reoccurring invitational, like when MJ would race at we'd go to the Punky Manor every year. So, some of those people we'd only see that one time, but
Right.
usually, some of those people we only saw when we were in the bar, because at that point, we stayed at the hotel. I think it was the Super 8. They had the bar in the hotel. That was really nice.
So you're
And,
telling me the invitational night, the racing was done early enough to get to the hotel bar?
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, well,
That ain't
actually,
happening now.
at the Punky, the first night, the cool thing was you go to the building and they had a dance. And so you go to the building, have some drinks, see which drivers showed up and stuff, and then we'd go back to the hotel and we'd still have time to drink. And
Man,
then after the bar closed, then there's a party room. Somebody's room was designated the party room, and
we'll stop there. We don't need to hear any more about hotel rooms. I don't want to. This is PG here, okay? But see, that's my fear, right? And hopefully they get it in a speedy fashion with the 5 classes. I'm not saying they won't. I'm skeptical, right? I don't think they will. I mean, how many times have we seen invitationals now in the postseason? They're getting done at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. That can't happen. If you're going to have 5 classes at this deal, fine, okay? But please, I beg you, be done at 10:30, right? Because there ain't nobody wants to sit there all freaking night. No matter how much we like racing, you got to have that camaraderie. And if you don't, it's a problem. And Albert, I love the super stocks. It's my class. So it's like, cool. The super stocks have another special they get to go to. That's great. It's great for Trevor Nelson because he's an Aberdeen car that doesn't have a lot of specials that time of year, right? It's great for some drivers in that area, from South Dakota area, Western Minnesota that might be able to head there. It's good for some of the drivers, but overall, man, this is such a great event, Bert. The Sites Memorial has been an absolutely awesome event over the years, and I just think sometimes adding to it isn't always the right thing to do, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. So what do you say we jump into a little who's hot and who's not? Who's hot, Bert?
well, I mean, I believe he was on our list last time, so I'm going to stick with RTJ. He's off to a tremendous start this year, so it'll be interesting to see if he can carry this on throughout the entire season.
Yeah, and I got RTJ on mine too. I mean, they're only taking your best 5 shows from Speed Weeks for Lucas Oil. His worst of his 5 is 3rd. He could literally probably just park it for the rest of the week, not race, and still have the point lead. But I think you're obligated to, with the way the Lucas Oil deal is, he'll be racing those shows. But yeah, he's had a really good start. I'm gonna go with Lucas Lee, not the most popular guy on Facebook, but a win in North Florida, 2 wins at East Bay, including the 5,000, and he won one of the features night number 1 down at Volusia. So Lucas Lee, red hot, and my pick to win it all there, Bert. He's going to be about unstoppable. He's like half a second a lot faster than everybody. Ethan Dotson from Bakersfield, California, in that Longhorn. He's pretty hot right now, and I think he's going to stay that way. Who do you got? Who's not?
I'm gonna go with Bishop. He's struggling a little bit figuring out this new car, and we've talked a lot on the show already about shock package and that sort of thing. So he's a smart guy, so I'm sure he'll get it figured out, but he's struggling a little bit right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's a close second. I'm going to echo you on that one, Bert. Brandon Shepard not off to a good start. I like the guy. I'm a B-Shep fan. He's a class act. He's a good interview. He's a hell of a racer. And hopefully he turns it around, but he seems ultra loyal, right? And that loyalty to Integra and all that might be what's holding him back. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see if maybe he can snag one here before Speed Weeks are over. So Bert, a little bit of asphalt racing this last week. This caught a lot of buzz on Facebook as well. Clash at the Coliseum, take two. So down at the LA Coliseum, they had the All-Star race for NASCAR. Martin Truex Jr., who did not win a single race in 2022, parked in Victory Lane down there. Your thoughts on that event?
I mean, it is what it is. I watched the entire thing except for some of the B features. I mean, the track is so small that really the only way to pass is you gotta just push people out of your way, and well, in the way they were pushing people out of the way, it's like you bump the car in front of you, but that car doesn't spin because that car bumps the car in front of them, and that's the car that actually spins.
I saw that a few times. So if you had to give it a grade, what grade would you give that event?
I would give it a B minus.
B minus. Well, grading on a curve, knowing that you gave Anvil a C a couple of years ago, that's like an A plus. So a B, I give it a solid B. A lot of traditional dirt fans are out there just hating on it, right? They're like, this is stupid. This is a halftime show, and all this stuff is dumb. And that event, Bert, I mean, I don't believe that event is tailored for your traditional NASCAR fans. It's not. It's there to try to get new people involved.
The reason it is there is because that's either the first or second largest TV market in the country, LA. And
right.
that's the reason why it's being held there. Because I saw comments on Facebook, well, why don't they hold it at a real short track like this one, blah blah. Well, because that short track only seats 5,000 people, not 50,000 like the seating is arranged at the Coliseum. And some people are making comments because they tuned in for the heat races. It's like, it looks pretty empty. Well, by the time the feature rolled around, it was pretty full. So
there was more people there than you'll see at any dirt track race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Maybe the Knoxville Nationals for the sprint cars, maybe, not sure. But am I a fan of that genre of music? No, I'm not. But the people in LA are, and they were dancing. So I'll give them a tip of the cap on doing something different to try to get more people involved in the sport. We need more fans, right? So we can't just cater like how we do things to like Ryan and Bert. We've been going to the races our whole lives. Well, this is what they like. Well, it can't just be that. It's got to be like, what do these people that don't normally watch racing, what do they like? Let's do that. And I thought it was entertaining. I thought the racing, the bumper cars deal, nobody got hurt. It's a small track, whatever. Smash them up a little bit. Half the guys who were in the infield after, right? They're getting smashed up and they're laughing about it, going, well, it's that deal, right? I think they had fun. I think the drivers, for the most part, enjoyed it.
I saw on Facebook. I don't remember if it was a news organization or who was interviewing Denny Hamlin, but they were asking him about the race, and he said, it is what it is, this and that, and then I haven't heard this, but I don't know, maybe there has been talk about it, but the reporter goes, well, there's been some talk about possibly turning this into a points race. What are your thoughts on that? And then without even smiling, he said, well, I think it should be a playoff race.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, he was being sarcastic, but
Right. And quite honestly, it is it's one of those deals. I think it would be interesting. It would sure shake things up a little bit, but I think overall it was a pretty good deal. I'd give them a solid B. So Mississippi Thunderbird, one of the premier tracks in the upper Midwest. They've just a resurgence over the last couple of years in Fountain City, Wisconsin. They announced new owners, and I always thought Bob Tim was the owner, but his brother-in-law.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, it turns out, and I did some research, his brother-in-law was primary owner, was the majority owner. So Don Werner and Bob Tim are going to be the majority owners, along with promoter from their Tyrone Lingenfelter, and then Austin Kruger and Trenton Berry from Racing Dirt are going to be minority owners as well. So a conglomerate of 5. They got some big things on the horizon. Excited about the future at Mississippi Thunder. Congratulations and good luck to them. So, speaking of Mississippi Thunder, the USMTS schedule was posted here about a week ago, maybe a little bit longer. And a couple surprises. One being no Mississippi Thunder on there, right?
That was the first thing that I noticed when I looked at the schedule.
All right, and they got some hitters, right? Dustin Sorensen won the USMTS championship. That's one of his home tracks, right? So interesting to me that they're not on there. I did talk to Tyrone, and he said, "Look, we ran the USMTS with the World of Outlaw late models. We didn't gain any extra fans because of the USMTS necessarily. It's a big late model event. They're still going to run USRA late models on that show, so they're going to get most of the cars that they were going to get anyway are going to be there, and they don't have to pay that big purse for the modified. So just a business decision financially. Another thing, Mason City 25th anniversary there, 25,000 to win. They're having a race sometime toward the end of the season, and Bert, they're going to end the season at the Sin City season finale, the Duel in the Desert at the dirt track in Las Vegas. That event, XR event, has dropped. They dropped the late models, and they're bringing in the USMTS modifieds for the headliner at the Duel in the Desert. That was a shocker to me. That was a surprise. What's your thoughts on the USMTS schedule?
Like I said, the first thing I noticed was MTS wasn't on there. And I believe there's only one Wisconsin track that is on there, and that's Cedar Lake for the Masters. So if you want to see the USMTS cars around here, in Wisconsin, you're going to have to go to Cedar Lake. So, I could remember when they'd race at a whole slew of Wisconsin tracks. So, I mean, this was probably like 8 years ago. They did a swing through Northeast Wisconsin where in like a 5-day span, they raced at 4 different racetracks in Eastern Wisconsin. But the problem was that nobody came to watch them.
Right.
Because in Eastern Wisconsin, it's IMCA country. So, none of the locals can compete with the USMTS cars. So, but overall, I think it's a good schedule, and we'll see how the season goes.
I tell you, if you're a mod driver from the region, right? Maybe not IMCA because it's so much different, I guess, as far as their cars. But if you're a Wissota guy in the area, this is a series to follow. I mean, you look at that schedule, Bert. It's not overly aggressive, and every race is a big payday there. So I tell you, if you have the budget, this would be a good one to follow because it's a very, very doable one. Speaking of big events, Bert, we're going to have a little fun, right? We're going to have a little fun. So Prairie Dirt Classic. This event ain't till the end of July, week before the USA Nationals. So last year they did a raffle. Okay. They sold 100 tickets at $1,000 a piece, and that generated $100,000 worth of revenue. Half of that money went into and they had a sponsor for it as well to come up with a couple extra grand. Half of that went to lap money. They paid $500 a lap for every lap led in that feature. So Brandon Shepard won that. He got 50 grand for winning, and he got an additional 50,000 for leading every lap, right? Then before the feature, they called down because they draw numbers out. So I think the winners of all the prelims draw names out of a hat. And I believe it was 8 people come down, or maybe 10. And there's big checks that were all wrapped in paper, and everybody went up and grabbed a check, and 9 of them, or 7 or 9 of them, were $1,000. So essentially they got their money back, and one lucky fan walked out of there with $50,000. What a cool way, right, to generate some extra revenue and have some fun with the fans. So myself, Bert Lehman, and Puka, who's incognito, he's doing his hockey podcast. He's doing a lot of work for us behind the scenes. So we'll give a little shout out to Puka. We decided to pool our resources together, and the One to Go Show purchased one of those tickets. So we're going to have a little fun and see if maybe we can have a little extra revenue for the One to Go Show. So your thoughts on that. Are we going to win that deal or what?
You better.
We're number 170. You had to pick a number between 101 and 200 or whatever, and I picked 171. They're like, that was already taken. I'm like, that's bullshit. So we got 170 because that was closest. But yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about as we get closer to that event. I'm really hoping to make it down there. Bert, let's jump into our 3 bold predictions for the week. And before we get into this week's predictions, we got a few off the board this week. So, Bert, you had Buzzy winning at least one feature at East Bay. That did not happen. That's a fail. You had Superman winning both features at Alltech. Well, one rained out, and I was thinking, man, am I going to have to give it to him if he wins one and the other one rained out? Well, it didn't matter.
You don't need to worry about that.
That did not even come close to happening. You way jinxed him. Mike is pissed, by the way. As far as the correct ones you had, kinda. I don't know how I feel about this.
Give me half a point for those two.
Oh, I'll give you the points. It is. I'm gonna cut it. So you said Mighty Mike Mullen and Benji Lacrosse, 2 absolute studs from Eastern Wisconsin, who made their way down there. We're gonna both get a top 5 and an A main at Volusia. Well, that Mullen got 3rd and Benji got 4th on night number 1. Now, the debate here is I'll let you decide this. Okay, the debate here is this. So here's the format. Okay, they qualified. There was 102 cars, I believe. I think is what they had. So they qualified, and then they literally did the split feature deal and split them up into 6 features. Oprah was there, right? She's like, you get a gator, you get a gator, everybody gets a gator, right?
They had 6 features last night.
6. So the format, Bert, is the first 3 nights, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That's the format. Time trial, split them into 6 equal features. Okay. So they're essentially heat races that are paid because they accumulate points all week long.
That's right. They didn't race heat races. You qualified and then you went into a qualifying feature.
Yeah, the only real feature is the 5,000 a win show on Saturday. All these other races are accumulating points to get there. And so, they both finished in the top 5 in one of those qualifying features, right? But imagine, hey, I won one of those features. Okay, so you beat Ethan Dotson? Well, no, he wasn't in my feature. Okay, you beat Kyle Strickland? No. You beat Lucas Lee? No, wrong feature. Well, what the hell kind of feature is it, right? So the only thing worse than that, Bert, is what they're doing Thursday, okay? Because they're not time trialing Thursday. They're literally taking them same 102 cars, and they're going to go, okay, you're in the top 18 in points. You're in feature 1. The next 18 in feature 2. So, they're going to split it equally between 6, but it's going to be the best X amount go in the first feature, and the worst ones go in the last one. So imagine the one being like, I'm 101st in points, and somehow the stars aligned, and I won the A main. You're gonna be like, I want a gator, I want a feature at Volusia. Oh, did you now? Oh, did you? Like, it's just, I don't know. That's just kind of the society we live in today. It's not. I have no problem with the format. Please just change the name of those races to qualifiers, right? That's it. We're splitting hairs here. I get the format, what they're doing, but they're not features. Come on. So you can decide if you want 2 points for that, 1 point. That's up to you. I'm good with whatever you want to do.
I shouldn't get a point. I agree. I shouldn't get a point. Give me a half a point.
All right. So Jeff, you heard it there. He does not get the 2 points for each of those correct. He gets 1 point total. All right. Okay. So I had a couple come off the board as well. I had Buzzy winning the finale. That was about as productive as JD winning.
Although I want to back up a little bit. If Benji and Mighty Mike Mullen finish in the top 5 on Saturday, then I get points.
Absolutely. And they very
Okay.
well could. Both of them two are very, very good on half miles, Bert. So I would like to see that. I am gonna go and I had Rocket gets a win at East Bay. Yeah, they won. A little asterisk there, because half the Longhorns, the good ones didn't even race. So there is that. So I got one there. So the standings right now, as it sits, is you have 12, 11, maybe 12 depending, but 11 for sure correct. I'm not going to give you an extra incorrect there. You're just going to get a half point each. So 13 incorrect and 2 on the board still. I have 5 correct, 17 incorrect, and 5 on the board. So kind of whooping my ass. So this week's predictions, Bert, I'm going to go first. Okay. So my 3 predictions are this. Okay. You ready?
Yeah. Am I supposed to write them down?
It's up to you. So
No.
Donnie Schott completes hot laps at least one night this week. Johnny Gibson says the greatest show on dirt. After Saturday's final race at East Bay, the late model teams some of them will head to Volusia.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That was about as lame as some of the picks that we've been having. So we need to be a little bit more bold, maybe, but it is. We're grabbing a lot of low lying fruit here. Okay. I think we need to go with the double. So Jeff, if we pick something that's really bold and we're like, hey, that's a home run, that's worth 2 points. So we'll we're gonna do that. Go ahead, Bert. You can actually go first. What's your first bold prediction of the week?
My first bold prediction is Superman goes winless down in Florida.
Mike is literally gonna beat your ass. All right. Okay.
Well, no, he may be happy that I'm picking that.
Dude, no. Mike Stearns is not even racing in Florida. Oh, you mean Jonathan Davenport? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Jonathan Davenport winless at Speed Weeks in 2023. Okay. I'm going to go with Rocket ends Speed Weeks with at least 3 feature wins.
Okay, well, that kind of correlates with mine. Well, I mean, it's Hudson O'Neal wins 2 features down in East Bay.
That's a little bit more particular. That could be a home run. That's a 2-pointer right there. Okay. The high side tickler, Kyle Strickler, will win at least 3 qualifying features at Volusia.
Brad Sweet will go winless this week down in Florida.
Bold. Okay. Brandon Shepard will have from now till the end of Speed Weeks, he will have 0 podiums in Lucas Oil dirt late model action. So we got a couple there. So any of those home runs there, you're gonna go, maybe the 2 Huddy wins would be a home run one if he hits 2.
Yeah, I think that would be the hardest one of the 3.
Yeah, I don't think I have any that would maybe necessarily correlate with a home run, so to speak. I didn't go that bold, but there you go. Episode 163 in the books. Are they racing yet? I saw you kind of looking. Are they racing yet at East Bay?
I don't know because I can't stream and do the show at the same time.
Fair enough. Me neither. So, all right. Well, we'll jump off here. Thanks again to all of our great sponsors. Hit us a like, hit us, share the content, post in the comments, what you like about the show or some stories about some of your favorite drivers. And again, I'm Ryan Aho. That is the Bert Lehman. Thanks for tuning in to the One to Go Show.